Welcome to Across the Ring. My name is William Mayhem Michaels.
And this is the scientist Carl Schupfer, and today we are here with SOS Sky Olivia Storm. Welcome to the show.
Hi everybody, nice to be here.
Absolutely. So SOS, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
So I am SOS. I've been training for a total of 6 years. I've been professionally out and about for about two and a half. So almost half of the time I've been training. I am currently based in Phoenix, Arizona, but I do travel everywhere in the Southwest, and I'm also starting to go out in the East Coast. When I'm not doing that, I'm just being kind of like an average human being, just kind of chilling, doing my own hobbies, my own things. But yeah, that's pretty much me.
Heck yeah.
Awesome. So, how did you first get introduced to wrestling?
So my dad actually is a fan. I don't know if he's still a big fan now, but he was before when I was like a kid. Um, we first got into it by him taking me to a local show, if I remember correctly. And I think that's when we moved to Florida because I was born in Cali, but we moved all the way to Florida when I was like 5 years old. So in Florida, we went to a local show and I was like super into it. And then he's like, all right, well, now I have to get you into WWE stuff. So we started getting WWE. And that's how I really got introduced. And then every so often as I grew up, like we would actually go to like a pay-per-view or one of their live shows. And like that's kind of how I got into it. And then I think in high school, it kind of died a little bit for a little while. And then when I got to college is when it really came back. And that's when I really wanted to do it because I was wanting to do it as a kid, you want to. But then when I went to high school, it just was like, nah, I have to go to college. I have to go be like, because I wanted to be an artist and that's what I actually have my degree in. So I was like, nah, I'm gonna be an artist. So I focused on that. But the moment I freaking left college is right when it came back. And that's where I've been doing since.
So how did you get back into it in college? Like what drew you back in?
The Divas Revolution.
Ah,
So
yeah,
I
that'll
was
do it.
I was already into like Beth Phoenix and Natalia and stuff like that. Like whenever I actually dove back into wrestling every so often, it was them. But then when the Divas Revolution came up with like Becky, Sasha, and Charlotte, that's when I was like, not I have to. I
Four
have to now. Like
horsewomen.
there's the opening right there because I can finally see people who are like me that actually aren't doing like bra and panty matches. They're
Right,
actually
right.
wanting to wrestle. And
Mhm.
I was like super for it. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to go do it. And at that time, I was going to college in Colorado. So I wasn't even in Arizona yet. So I had to find all that kind of stuff out to figure out what I was going to do.
Yeah.
So,
Wow. So, you said that you got an art degree. How do you kind of pull from your art background as a wrestler?
so SOS is a split personality. And so I have to be creative even with that, with how I'm acting. So not many people notice, and maybe some have picked it up, especially a lot of wrestlers, is there's little things that I do that are different from all three of them. And I have to pick that apart. And then like my gear itself also, shout out to Danny for my gear maker, because without her this gear would not be the way it was, because we had to like we spent I think 2 weeks trying to figure out like what I wanted to do. And I was like, all right, here's my gimmick. I like tech stuff and I like Joshi Pro Wrestling. Like I like Japanese culture because I was into that with my dad. And she's like, all right, we have this. And I was like, yeah, keep that. We're doing that. And so that's what's been since. So a lot of my creativity is very much into my gear and my gimmick itself and my persona, because I'm just a creative person in general. So I guess it kind of worked out in favor with wrestling.
So you mentioned Colorado and trying to figure that out. Is Colorado where you got your start, or did you get your start like in Arizona?
I actually got started in Arizona 6 years ago. So
Okay.
I want to say about 5 months before I started is when I moved to Arizona, because my older sister worked here, and she's like, hey, I know you're about to be done with college. Why don't you come down here and then you can start having a job here? Had nothing to do with art though, but it was a good job to start with. So I was like, yeah, sure. So I came down, I pretty much was like, all right, when I get down there, I want to see if there's any schools. At that time, there was the Arizona Wrestling Federation training school out here in
Mhm.
Phoenix, and there was another one that was like out. It was like a lucha. It was one of like the lucha ones that I don't think they're around anymore.
Mhm.
I don't remember, but there was less than what there is now. So
Right.
at that time, I was like, oh well, I have to pick one or the other. And AWF school was closer to me because at that time I lived in like northern Phoenix, close to Anthem. So I
Yeah.
was like, that's closer to me. So I was
Mhm.
like, all right, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna save up money and I'm gonna start going by like next year. And that by the time February rolled around is when I started. So I was in Colorado and I was gonna actually go to the Rocky Mountain Pro,
Yeah.
but then my sister's opportunity of moving to start a job is what got me to come down to Arizona and actually start training.
And that seems like kind of lucky because it seems like training there seems to have worked out really well for you. Speaking of your sister, we like to find out, who a lot of wrestlers' biggest supporters are. It sounds to me like your sister is, somebody that, is supportive, at least in, getting you a job and stuff like that. But who else are people that are, really supportive of you either starting out or even now?
So I do have a few friends that actually do support me. They actually don't live here in Arizona. They're actually mad because they're all on the East Coast and I'm on the West Coast, so they can never see me. So I keep telling them, if you like patience, I'm getting over there.
Working my way over it.
Right.
Yeah, I'm working my way over there. But I do have like my older sister. I also have a younger sister who lives out in Tucson now, and she's like my biggest supporter. She every time I have a poster out, she shares it. And she always puts on her Insta story, and she goes to my Tucson shows, and she's always like live streaming or putting it on Insta story. And I know for like I'll see it every so often. I'm like, okay, she's a big supporter. My dad is very supportive too. He lives in Florida, so he's like waiting for the time I get down there.
Yeah.
And I'm slowly getting there. It's working out. It's just the timing now. Now it's just
Yes.
timing. And my mom lives up in NorCal at the moment, and I actually was up there in April. Yeah, late April for Full Queer. So she
Mhm.
actually got to see me at that time. And at first, she wasn't very sure about like wrestling, which I
Mhm.
understood
Yeah.
because it's like it was her the same thing with me wanting to be an artist. Like it's a rough go. Like
Yeah.
you
Right.
you're not gonna make like a huge ton of money go the first go round. I told her, I'm like,
Mhm.
I know, like it's not gonna happen. Like even now, like I make enough, but it's not like I make more than what I'm losing, especially because I have to
Yeah.
fly out. I have to drive out to places. I'm losing a lot of money, and to me, it doesn't matter because I'm going to wrestle and like look at the fans and stuff like that. And now that she sees that position that I explained to her, she's like, okay, now I'm a huge supporter. Whatever you need, whenever you come out here, like let me know. So she's like a huge supporter. And like my grandma too, because she lives out with her. Um, she was like always a fan. The moment she found out I was wrestling, because she didn't know
Mhm.
at first, she didn't even know I was training until I think my second show. And
Yeah.
she's like, why didn't you tell me? And I was like, well, I just started training and I just completely spaced it because my mom told her. So she actually went out to one of my first shows, and I think I was facing at the time Mystique. Yeah, that's when I had my feud with her down here in Arizona,
Mhm.
and that's when she first saw me wrestle, and she was like a huge fan since. So anything I do, my grandma thinks it's the best thing ever.
That's pretty
So
awesome.
that is
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. So
I
like Full Queer, that was your mom's first show and first time seeing you wrestle? That's the
Yeah,
one with
yeah,
like Barbie Boy and all them.
yeah.
Yeah.
She actually loved
Oh
that
man.
show.
Oh,
That's
I
the
bet.
funnier part. That's like,
Hey, listen,
she was like, "No, I love it," and I'm like, "Okay," because at first I was
hey.
like, I told her, I'm like, "Mom, it's not a normal wrestling show. Like, it's not going to be WES. It's like
Yeah.
it's called this for a reason." She's like, "Oh, it's gonna be fine." Oh man, my grandma was there too. My grandma, my mom, my aunt, my cousin, like they all were having the best time, and I was like, "All right, as long as you guys had the best time, it's
What
fine."
me and Coro both have been to a couple drag wrestling shows and stuff like that, and like there's just so much entertainment to it. that brings
Yeah.
in. Like it's
Yeah.
just it's so much fun.
Well,
We love
in
it.
wrestling as a whole, like when you
Mhm.
go to a wrestling show live, it's really hard to have a bad time. Like
Yep.
it really is. Like if you're having a bad time at a wrestling show, it's probably your own fault. Like
Yeah.
wrestling is too much fun to be
Right.
having a bad time.
Right.
Yeah.
So SOS, I want to dive into your character a little bit. You know, we talked
Okay.
about SOS split personalities. Like what were your biggest influences for that persona?
So the beginning, let's start from the beginning of this persona. So
Okay.
I actually did not come up with the split personality gimmick. My trainer did, because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I at first wanted to start with the being a ninja gimmick. I am
Mhm.
thick. It's not
Mhm.
going to work. I don't want to do flippy stuff right now. Like when I first started, I was like, no flippy stuff. He's like, well, you can't do it. So I was like, all right, we have to think with something else. And then the name came up, and then he's like, you should do it as a split personality. And me and him were going back and forth about it. And then we watched, he recommended me watch the movie Split.
Mhm.
And that's where my main influence came from, is watching Split, and how the actor managed to do any of his like switches for any of the personalities, how they dressed and things like that. So I slowly started to figure out, okay, this will be what Sky does, this is what Olivia does, this is what Storm does, and like be able to kind of pinpoint like what to do with them. And so with my promos, depending on like who I want to be out that day, if it's Olivia, for example, she like talks really excited. She's super excited and super like vocal and very animated. Like she's like excited to be here. That's basically kind of how she is. And
Mhm.
Storm is very quiet, because she's like the one that's the most violent. So she doesn't really want to talk. If she talks, it's like she had like the camera's super close. She's dead staring at it. She wants you to pay attention to everything she's saying. And then there's Sky, who's like, listen, I want to fight you. You're going to lose. It's fine. Just suck it up. You know, like she's just like, she's violent, but she's very cocky about it. Like, cause she
Mhm.
knows that like, oh, we're big, you know, like we're big and strong. You're going to get thrown around. It's fine. So like slowly taking those kind of ideas and putting them together. Um, it's a very rough gimmick. My trainer even told me from the get-go it was going to be, and it did
Mhm.
take me about like a year or two really to kind of get it, to
Mhm.
figure out like this is how I want it. And that's how like now with how I'm doing it and people seeing it and actually enjoying it, like that's not how it was like last year or the year before. It was way different. It was like to the point where like I actually had different shirts for them to wear that I
Yeah.
have in my closet. I was like, nope, this is for the three of them. This is Sky's, this is Olivia's, and this is Storm's. So we're not wearing anything else. Like any other promo, that's how they're going to differentiate them. And then I was like, no, I need to change that. I hate that, because then I started wearing the shirts, like the different wrong shirt for like Olivia was
Ugh.
wearing Sky's shirt, and I was like, see, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. So now I just was like, no, now I'm going to do it with the tone of voice, the way I'm like my
Mhm.
facial expressions are, what I'm saying, because then that's when people kind of start picking up on it. And
Yeah.
even now, I don't know if you guys have seen even my most recent one I even posted today. I'm like starting to talk to them, because I realize if I do that, people start actually thinking it's kind of hilarious.
Yeah.
But it also works with the whole thing,
With the whole
because
thing.
I do that in the ring all the time. I'll start
Mhm.
talking to them, and everybody's like, the heck is she talking to? Why is she talking to the corner? Or I'll go and high five myself. That's my favorite thing in the world. Everybody gets a crack out of that. No matter what I'm doing, I'll hit the person. I'm like, yes. So it's the best thing to watch people react to like the small things I'm doing for this
Mhm.
persona. And they're finally picking up like, okay, this is what she's doing, and then working with
Yeah.
it.
I like that. I like that a lot because like with like movies and stuff like that, like
Yep.
the best movies are the ones that you didn't catch everything and then you see like the listicle later and they're like 10 things you didn't realize in this movie, right? Because it's like
Yep.
subtle.
Yep.
You're not spoon feeding your audience of like, oh yeah, there's this thing, there's this thing. It's like you're forcing them to kind of like learn and like actually absorb your
Pay
character as
attention.
opposed to being like,
Yeah.
here's the character on a platter. So that's really cool that you kind of add more subtlety to it to make it more dynamic and interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like to put layers on on everything, and especially my persona, it has to be, because if I just give it on a silver platter, I feel like it's going to be way too obvious, and
Mhm.
it's going to look like, because like the way the gimmick is, it's an actual mental illness, it's dissociative
Mhm.
identity disorder, so I want to treat it respectfully but also have it as my persona. So I even did
Mhm.
a lot of research on the actual mental illness itself to be like, okay, where's my limit, so I'm not
I'm
offensive.
not offensive. Yeah.
because
Right.
Mhm.
because what if we have somebody that's in the audience that actually has it? Then I
Right.
don't want to be so offensive to the point that they're like, oh, you are making a mockery out of what I
Mhm.
have, blah blah blah. I don't want to be that person.
Right.
And fortunately, I have had a person in the audience who has it, but they were not even offended, and that made me happy, because I'm like, I don't want to offend somebody to the point where I have to change the gimmick
Right.
entirely, because then I
Right.
feel like I'm not going to keep going if they're offended.
Right. I think that that's super cool. And the people that buy into this idea and, work with you on it are probably the ones that have the best results and, some of your best highlights.
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. I mean, if you guys have ever talked to or even met Gypsy Mac, she could tell you, because I've had 20 matches with her last year. Me and her were fighting each other all the time, like for the whole year. It's ridiculous. But like she's the one I mostly was doing a lot of the stuff with, whether I was a heel or face. But
Mhm.
when I was a heel, like she let me do my heel work of talking to myself and like going to the corner and telling myself to shut up, because like, Olivia, you're talking too much. Turning around, getting hit or something, like to be able to kind of work that and like take my time too, like really helps them and helps the crowd get behind them, and also be mean to me because
Mhm.
I'm talking to myself, but also they don't know I'm talking to myself. I'm probably telling them to shut up, so they're like, no, you shut up. So it's like, it kind of like works
Right.
in my favor and also my opponent's favor, and that's what I want. Like,
Yeah.
I know like how like my figure and stuff, like I don't flip. I know how to. I can
Mhm.
do top rope moves if I really want to, but do I want to? Not specifically, not if I don't have to.
Do you
So
need
I
it?
exactly. So like a lot
Yeah.
of my work is the character work, and it really over, especially like within the past year and a half now, it's gotten to the fans, like it's actually helped them become fans of me just
Mhm.
by me doing that small stuff.
Yeah.
Even doing my favorite heel move of choking them on the rope, grabbing their hand and waving hi to the camera now.
I got
Like,
that too. I got
you
that
did,
too.
and I was
Yeah.
like, thank God, because like I first did it to Gypsy, and like I noticed people reacting with it, so I kept doing it. So
Yeah.
it's been my thing, and if I know the fans are going to be behind it, I keep
Mhm.
it, which is why like the high five I started doing, me
Yeah.
yelling at the corner I kept doing, and like sometimes I'll just sit there and I'm like, what stop yelling at me, because like I'm hearing them yelling at me, and I'm just sitting there looking confused, and people in the back are like, you should have just kept moving. I'm like, no, that's the point. I'm hearing them yell at me. It's fine.
It's the little things in mind, outside of being just a professional wrestler, we all have hobbies. I know you mentioned art. I mean, you majored in it, so it's probably your biggest hobby, right? What other
Yeah.
hobbies do you have outside?
So I play a lot of video games. I like a lot, and I mean in different genre too. Like I'll play Battlefield, I play Call of Duty, I'll even turn around and play like Sims, or I'll play like other simulation games or like strategy games. And if I'm not doing that, um, I actually am helping like a friend like edit his videos,
Mhm.
because I know how to do that, because my dad was into like video editing and movie making. So I learned a lot of tips from him. So I kind of have that as like a back hobby
Oh, it
that
sounds
I'll
like
bring up.
sounds like I need to get her over here to help me out.
Hey, I always am
What's
happy to help
out?
people. I'm always happy to help people. But like, yeah, I do that. And then I also do, because it's like this big thing that boomed in on Twitch called GTARP. I do a lot of that as well. It's with like Grand Theft Auto. You basically role play in a video game kind of thing. I do that. I got into it very much before I started wrestling, and it's kind of stuck. And my friend has a server, and I actually know how to code, because I learned
Oh,
some of it in school, and also with
nice.
my and also on my own.
Mhm.
So I actually do a lot of I'm a developer for him with a lot of the scripts and things for him and everything.
Oh wow.
So if I'm not wrestling, I'm like doing any of those.
So
It's
you're
a
saying
fun
that
time.
you stream on Twitch then?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense because like looking at your background, it looks very like I got this lit up so I can do Twitch and stuff like that. It's a good
Yeah.
setup there.
Yeah, I actually have a ring light, but it's not here. It's back there because I did a promo like the other day and I was too lazy to put it back here. So I was like,
Sorry, you've got like computer screen light and stuff like that. So
yeah.
you're not in the shadows. So
As long as I'm not in the shadows, yeah. Because I noticed and I was like, I think I'll be okay.
Yeah, you're good.
well, that's really cool. You know, Will and I, we did try to stream once where we reacted to like a wrestling show, but it is surprisingly hard to kind of get all that stuff set up to make it look right and everything for doing Twitch streaming. It's a lot more than just going online and playing a video game. It's really involved.
Yeah, it's very involved and you have to multitask if you're very
Mhm.
much engaged with your audience. Cause like like I said, I do the GTRP. So like I'm doing role playing in one screen and everybody's talking the other. So I have to like focus here. And then sometimes when I'm not talking, I have to look over and be like and answer people who are talking to me. So
Questions,
it's like, yeah, it's like it's a whole thing. And it's a lot of fun. I'm not gonna deny that. Like it's enjoyable, but it's a lot of work. It's like with wrestling, it's another job. So it's kind
Right.
of like you have to build the brand and just like
Right.
build it and know like it's gonna take a ton of hard work to even get where you want to go. Because we're all not gonna be like, freaking XQC with 3.4 billion followers or viewers at
Right,
the same
right.
time.
Right.
So like it takes a while and he lucked out. Like the one time he was like doing his Twitch stream with celebrities and stuff is the time that he actually got seen. Like after that he's been booming. So it's like it's a it's a thing of hard work and also chance.
Yeah.
So
Right. You
it's
never
like
know when your moment's gonna be, kind of thing, right?
exactly. And that's how I
Yeah.
equate it to like wrestling. Like it's like it'll get to that point where all of a sudden the chance happens and boom, like
Boom.
it's up from there.
So, with you talking about like doing like the role play GTA stuff, do you ever kind of use that to kind of practice different ideas for like your wrestling stuff, or is this something completely separate for you?
It's something completely separate. I don't like to mix my wrestling with anything else because I know if I do that, I'm not going to like wrestling anymore. So I try my best to not mix it.
So you're not burned out.
Yeah, because like
Yeah.
because sometimes if you do too much of something, like eventually you might end up starting to hate it, and I don't want to ever get to that point.
Yeah.
And I know with wrestling, like I feel like I won't ever get there, but you never know, and I don't want to like find out
Right.
by doing something like that. So I try not to mix it. There are like a few people that know like on the server that I'm a professional wrestler, but they don't necessarily ask me too many things. They think it's freaking cool, and they'll be like, hey, like, do you have like pictures of your show that you went to this weekend? Because they'll know I'm gone during the weekend, and I'll just like share some, and like some of them actually follow me on Insta and everything, and they'll like talk about it with me. But they seem to be well aware without me having to tell them that I keep things separate,
Yeah.
so they don't try and ask too much.
That's
And I
really cool.
like it's very respectful. Like I appreciate people like that because I don't mind talking about it, but at the same time, I'm like I want to keep things to
Right.
different
You want to be
corners.
more than just a wrestler. Like you're still, an artist. You're still someone that had, or just a regular person. Like,
Yeah.
you don't want to be just this like ephemeral wrestler or whatever. Like seems like you want to stay grounded.
Yes.
And we definitely feel that because we don't want to be just podcasters, right? We have other stuff going on. I mean, don't get us wrong, wrestling drowns our life and our wives are both about to kill us, but but we love wrestling, and we both are able to go to each other and be like, hey bro, I need a break. Hey bro, I need a break, and then the other one picks up, because there's a lot to it. It's not just the podcast, it's keeping a media presence and all this other stuff on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and it's a lot of fun, but if it's all the time, you don't want to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
But so now that we talked about that, Carl, do you want to get into you got more questions or?
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like, you know, you kind of talked a lot about your different hobbies and stuff, and I think that, you know, that's super cool that you have, you know, something like that. You know, I definitely have always thought it'd be really cool to, you know, be a Twitch streamer, stuff like that. But I also thought it'd always be really cool to be a wrestler. So, you know, you've been wrestling for a few years now. You know, you said that you got your start in Arizona, but you know, you've started to kind of travel more. You know, what are some of the cool places you've been able to travel to as a wrestler?
I have traveled to a few cities in SoCal. So like I've been to LA, I've been to Riverside, I've been up to Anaheim. I'm actually supposed to go to Compton in October. I'm actually excited because Compton Mania finally is like, hey, you want to come out now? And because they've been begging me, and I'm like, you have to give me a date. I'm getting booked like crazy. Like
Mhm.
this year, I've started getting to where almost every month, like every weekend, I'm getting booked somewhere. Like on one of the days, or I'm getting booked like Saturday and Sunday. So I'm like, you have to give me a date so I can actually put it in and just
Mhm.
block out that time so I don't like say yes and then I forget to put it in, and then I get myself double booked because that's not fun. um,
That's
but yeah,
happened.
yeah, it does happen. But like I've been up to NorCal too, where I've been to Oakland for Full Queer, and then I've been up to Santa Clara, and I was supposed to go back up there in September. Um, in Texas, I've been to Boiger, which that's where I'm the champ currently,
Mhm.
and also in Lubbock, and I'm supposed to go back there next weekend. I debuted in Georgia last month, and I'm going actually on Friday to have my second match. I'm actually pretty excited. Yeah, I think that's pretty much where I've been. I mean, I've been to Colorado too for a little bit up in Colorado Springs, and I forgot where because I went to Renegade Championship Wrestling. It's been a hot second since I've been there. I think it's been since November, and that's when
Mhm.
I lost the title to Rekka Tahaka. And I forgot where that was. That one was in Pueblo, but they wrestle out of a different city that's like nearby it. So
Wow.
yeah,
So you've mentioned a couple titles. I know
yes,
that you were the first ever Motivate Women's Champion, right?
yes, I am still the reigning and
So
defending,
right. So
actively
how
defending.
so how did that feel to win that title, to be the first ever?
So they were telling me like in March I was supposed to get it, and I thought
Mhm.
they were joking because I'm used to like people seeing like, oh, you might get it, and then I don't get it, it doesn't matter to me. I'm like,
Mhm.
you're putting me in a title match. To me, that like means a lot to me because that means you give me trust enough that I'm in like this important match for
Right.
your company. So that was a big deal, and then being the first ever, and then like actually winning it. Um, like I cried at least 3 times. The first time was in the ring when I got it after I like stood up. And then the other time was when we got to the back and then on the way home with Brittany Brooks, because we both were working that show.
Mhm.
Um, we were in the car and I started crying. And she's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I won the title." And I'm like still kind of not used to the fact that I won the title. Um, yeah, it was a big deal to me because the promoter really like he loves me. He
Mhm.
loves me a lot. Like he kept telling me like how good I'm doing and like how I he very much appreciates like my professionalism and what I do, and he loves seeing me work. Um because like at the time I met him at Renegade Championship Wrestling out in Colorado.
Mhm.
So that's how me and him got the connection. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm doing a show out in Warrior, and I want you and Gypsy." Because at that time we were facing each other for the title in Renegade.
Mhm.
And I was like, "Yeah, sure, just let me know." Because the drive there, I have at that time she was in New Mexico, so I have to drive to New Mexico, and we would hop in a car together with Dante King, and then we would drive off, like to go straight there.
Yeah.
So like it worked out, and yeah, he was telling me since March, and when it came up, he was like, "Are you ready?" And I'm like, "For what?" And
For
like
what? I don't know.
and I knew what he was talking about after, but I
Mhm.
was just like, I feel like you're gonna like plot twist it and give it to because it was like me, Olivia, and Brittany Brooks, and I was like, if you're gonna give it to Olivia, that's fine because then me and
Mhm.
her can feud. Like it's
Yeah.
fine, but he's like, no, I'm giving it to you, and like I thought he was joking, so
Oh my gosh.
and
That's
he still
awesome.
thinks that's funny that like I thought he was joking, and I was like, I don't think you understand like the trauma I've been through, where people say I'm getting it, and then they turn it around and like, no, I'm gonna let the other person get it, and then
At
I'm
the
like,
last
okay,
minute.
yeah, and I'm like, okay, it's fine. But yeah,
So,
so
what other titles have you held outside of the Motivated Women's Champion?
the Renegade Championship, Wrestling Valkyrie Championship that currently Rekka has. That's the only one I had before this one.
Okay.
I held that for I think like a few months before she got it. It was funny because that was like my third match with them. Because I think at that time Gypsy was leaving, and I was the only other female that they were able to keep retaining. And they were telling us, this is why I said I have trauma. They were telling us that Gypsy was supposed to have it, and we had everything ready. We got there. I lost, and the promoters like came out and was like, no, you can't cheat, Gypsy. And I was like, oh. So yeah, that's how that ending where to where I went. That's why I have trauma.
That's awesome. I feel like I've talked with different people, and I feel like it's really hard to for promoters to find women to wrestle on their shows. There's certainly less women that wrestle on shows than men. So it sounds like he really appreciates that you're able to make it to shows and stuff like that, and have been dedicated. It seems like that's something that's really appreciated by promoters, because it is so hard to get women on shows because there's so few.
Yeah, there is. And then I mean I've always said it, and I said it I think in a previous podcast, we're like a kind of like a hot commodity, where
Right.
like you can see, like I'll see it all over on my Facebook, and I'll get mentioned where somebody's asking for women talent, and I at first I never realized it was a big deal. I thought there were so many of us, to be quite honest. I know there was many of us. I was like, well, there's all these ladies here. What do you mean? But like, yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, in this professional, like in this sports entertainment, in this sport, like there isn't that many of us, because a lot of us aren't able to really stick around long enough, because it feels like it gets really tough. And you have to have, like, it's something that my trainer Lawrence Tyler has said, you have to have thick skin. Like, you have to have thick skin, especially as a woman, because like a lot of people think we're still, like, it's far progressed than when we all started, but we are still seen as like kind of like a bathroom break still, for some reason, like to a certain extent, until they see and they're like, oh no, now we have to sit and wait, like, to see what's going to happen. And now that more people are seeing that, that's where I'm like, okay, cool. Like, a lot of people are wanting to see more women, and a lot of promoters want to have the women's matches, because if they see that, then they're going to have, honestly, they're going to have a lot more female presence even in their fans.
Right.
Because I mean, a lot of if they see us, they'll be like, oh, I want to, like, I want to be a fan of that lady, that woman.
Right,
She's cool.
right.
She's badass. She's amazing. Like, a lot of my fans that I have are actual females. They're either that or they're kids. But also kids thinks it's funny that I'm a bad guy and I yell at them to be quiet. But but like a lot of the times it's usually been like, it's been little girls or it's been ladies that are like, oh, you're so amazing, blah blah blah. And like, it's so nice. Like, one of the first things I've heard when I was working Sonorian Championship Wrestling out here in Arizona, the first show, show, I had a little girl come up to me and be like, you're so awesome. And I'm like, thank you, thanks. 'Cause I didn't know how to act, because I was a bad guy at that time. So
Right.
I was like, God, I can't be mean, because thank you.
Right.
Thank you so much. Well,
And then
just be mean to everybody but her, like, she's special. Screw the rest of you.
I mean, I had to be, she told me to be mean to her dad, and I was like, it was before the show, so like I was like, which was your dad? And she points at him, and I was like, all right. So I got to yell at him. And she thought it was hilarious.
That
but
is
yeah,
awesome.
like, yeah,
But
it's always nice to hear that, though, because like even hearing from the moms being like, I like how they're so excited to see the women's wrestle, because they've never seen it before. They usually see the guys all the time, so when they know we're coming, like even the moms get hyped. Like, and that's like my favorite thing is like making the whole family excited, just like to see us, because like at the end of the day, like we're here for the fans, and just knowing like, yes, the women's wrestling is actually still continuing, still being strong and stuff, like that's what we want. And that's the path I'm still going to help advocate, is like women's wrestling to be just as big, if not bigger, than the men's, because yes, the men's wrestling is boring. I'm just kidding. But yeah, like just to be as big as the men's wrestling.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we've talked about quite a lot today. I think, everybody's learned so much about you, your whole story, and, a good idea of where you're headed. But, for fans that, listen to this whole interview, like, look, she seems cool and all, but should I really go see her wrestle? What do you tell the holdout fans to, why they should come see you wrestle?
You should just come see me wrestle because I'm a female, man. I'm just kidding. Not just that. Not even just that. Well, like as I've always said, my persona is very unique. It's very different, especially for a female, because not many females want to do a difficult split personality gimmick that requires you to be basically 3 gimmicks in one person. It's very unique to itself, and it's a unique experience when fans come and see me do what I do. Plus, I mean, having a thick girl is always fun, because you get to see them slam smaller people. Excuse me, people, and that's always fun. So I mean, if you really like to really want to see me, is kind of to see someone who brings a uniqueness to the ring, to the fans, to them, and is able to do that, plus also throw people around at the same time, and also be silly, because regardless if I'm being serious, there's something silly in the seriousness somewhere, and it's always a fun time. So I mean, if y'all want to come see me, regardless, whenever you see me on my social media and stuff, like come see, and you'll actually see like what I'm talking about, with the intensity, with the seriousness, but also with that silly comedy, just enough to like keep you guys engaged, because that's what I want. I don't do any of the flippy stuff to keep people's focus, like Ricochet and like Will Ospreay. I'm not them. I wish. But I'm not them in that, for the whole high flying and stuff. But I can say that at least the technicality part of it all, and the power, I can at least bring that to the ring just as good as them.
Heck yeah.
So
heck yeah.
That sounds great. I mean, it sounds to me like, you got to hold that P for one more match, because you're going to see something you weren't going to see in women's wrestling when you're in the ring.
Yes.
I mean, in the words of my daughter, the men's match is boring. Just go Peter in that one. So guys, that's it. We're gonna go ahead and wrap it up now. SOS, I do want to go ahead and take the time and thank you for coming on our show again.
Of course, it's always nice to be here.
Absolutely. And guys, you can check SOS's Instagram out, which is Save One Soul. So that's 2 S's. And from there, you can jump on her link tree, see her YouTube, her merch, and everything that she's got going on. Also, remember to jump onto our Instagram, Across the Ring. We also have Linktree that leads you into all of our other dimensions that we have. Make sure you check out the show, check out the past shows. And guys,